Hey, what's going on, guys? How all you doing? Welcome to a new video tutorial on the series of learning React. Today we're gonna have a practical example and we're just gonna create something really cool from scratch using React in order to show you how actually React works and how you can maintain your create a real-world applications and real-world UI states, and you can manage it however you want using the power of React. What I'm actually going to do today is create a timer. So a timer that you can just, have a seconds, hours, and minutes. And whenever you press the button, just the timer gonna start counting from zero. Of course, this is not a countdown. So just gonna create it like a stopwatch. So yeah, you start recording the time and see if like something happened on this particular thing. You just click on the button of capture this time, and the time is gonna get captured for you up there in the UI as well, and you're gonna get a really nice clock over there. So this is what we're trying to do. Here's like a screenshot on the screen. So we get like a stop timer, we get a stop timer and a capture timer and a reset button that we can click to reset everything to 0 seconds, 0 minutes, 0 hours to start again and from scratch, obviously. So this is what we're going to do is in React, just fully React, no Flux is needed for that. You still can use Flux for that, for storing some sensitive data like the captures and stuff like this, but we're not going to need that. You can do that, or you can put this as a challenge for you, or as an example, so you can just create it by yourself in order to see how React versus Flux, and just maintain yourself and make it as a practice for you. But for now, we're just gonna create it by ourselves over here. Also, one thing I want to mention, you can just go ahead and websiteupdates.com. You can find a pretty nice tutorials over here. A lot of tutorials actually, and yeah, you can just skills out or something like this. So yeah, enough of that. I've opened up the project that we were working on, so nothing changed so far. Just a little thing. I will talk about this in a second. So this is like how the project, this is like rendered into the DOM and stuff. I'm gonna create the component, but before that, I've gone and created the main style over here. So this style is like, I've imported it, or I've done it by myself. So like you can go ahead and GitHub, because this project is deploying to GitHub. Go in GitHub and grab all of that, because it's available over there. So there's no problem on this. So make sure to grab it before you can use the style, or you can style it by yourself. Doesn't really matter that much, but this is what I want to mention. So here, this is the main style. It's placed into the SAS under the src or source SAS, and there's main style, and this app.scss, or the SAS, so SCSS stands for SAS, and we just importing this main style. So this app.css, if you go into webpack.mix.js, go all the way up, and you can find I've added a new method. So under this new method, I've typed .sas, and I've given it the source we want to compile, which is src/SAS/app.css. And although we're just gonna put the compiled or pre-compiled CSS under the distribution folder, as you can see here we have app.css, so I just chosen where the folder to put that into distribution folder / so just gonna put it over there. So just all I've done, all the changes I've done over here is very basic. Also, I'm using the normal Webpack thing. So yeah, in here I'm not using Webpack dev server as we have done with Flux, because we don't really need it. And yeah, this is all we pretty much need. Now, so let me just go ahead and create a new component. So I'm just gonna go ahead and create layout component and just extends it from the React dot component. Also, we need the constructor over here. So yeah, make sure to type in constructor and props, and just gonna call the super method with passing in the props. Also, we need the render method, as you know, and we're just gonna return something under this render method. So for now, we're just gonna use one single component. This is like a single timer. We don't need a lot of components over here, just a very basic thing. So yeah, this is what we need to render for now. So there's a return here. We need to return like a container. So with this particular container, what I'm going to render is I'm using just Bootstrap custom container, and I'm gonna put it under a container and another container, like a predefined one, which is under the main style, which is like the timer container, using the Flexbox design actually. So yeah, going ahead with the dev. So, or let me just recreate that. Okay, dev, and I'm just gonna give it a class name. Make sure to use a class name, not a class, because using class is gonna give you a weird error. And here we're just gonna put a container. So this is gonna be the main container, and also I'm just gonna put a class, and I'm gonna give it like timer dash Okay, timer dash container, and obviously under this container we can put in here like an h2 or something like this, like React based something like based timer or something like this. Okay, just for letting you know that I'm using this particular thing. Also, what I'm going to do is using like the this state and using like the current timer. So what we need is to display the current timer like in zeros, like minutes, hours, and seconds. So we can do that as well. I've already like done a class for this. So under the CSS or the SAS, so current timer, I'm just gonna put that as well in there. And obviously what I'm going to do is like timer controls. So also class name equals so timer dash controls, and this is what pretty much we need. So for the timer controls, what we need is the buttons. So a couple of buttons actually. So let me just go ahead and create those buttons for us. So class name, and just gonna use a btn dash success. So this is like the button for starting timer. So start timer, and we're gonna have another button as well. So another button is going to be like stop timer. So class name is going to be like a danger or something like this. Okay, I'm just gonna use the btn. Also, I'm using bootstrap in here just for letting you know. So bootstrap, and this is gonna be like large or something, and stop timer. Also, what we need is another button and class name. So also btn, and this is going to be like the capture. So I'm going to capture like we're in the timer. Let's say I'm 14 minutes and 3 seconds, and I want to capture this time. So just click this capture button, and it's just gonna get registered in us and show us in the UI. So this is like for remembering that we have done something with this particular time or something like this. Okay, now here capture time, and not timer, time, only time. Let me just copy that for okay, making it, and here we can just reset. So reset exclamation, and this is going to be a danger. So this is like the buttons that we mainly need for that, just very basic things. And yeah, so for the current timer, what we need is to render a couple of things. So here we need to render the hours, the minutes, and the seconds. For that, we need to store them on a state. So always remember that something is going to update over time on whenever like the interaction of the user. So whenever, let's say I'm clicking a button and I want to change some, I don't know, some text or something like this. So this needs to be stored into the state. So it's like going to be updated during the runtime. So like the state need to hold that. So let me just go ahead and initialize that. It's not very important to initialize this state, but for in this case, it is very, very important because like not all the components need state initialized into the constructor, but this one really needs to get initialized into the constructor actually. So here what I'm going to do is just keep track of a couple of booleans in here. So like the timer of start and like the timer start. So start, and it's going to be false, like the timer is not start yet. Also timer stopped, so for like the application starts with the timer stopped, so it's going to be true. And gonna have like the hours, so hours going to be 0 at the beginning. Minutes also going to be 0, or obviously seconds also is going to be 0. So yeah, this is what actually we need for now. So seconds, minutes, and hours. And also what we need is the captures. So the captures, whenever you click this button, we need to keep a capture. So we need to store it in some kind of an array in order to render it out. So for that, we need to store a captures array into the state as well. So remember, the captures is something is going to change, so we need to store it into the state. So not everything is going to be stored in the state. You can store it into the class, this particular class over here. So always distinguish between like whenever you store it into the class context and into the state object. So make sure to know about that, because this is not going to like work a lot on optimizing your application and making it looks a little bit more better and less buggy. Okay. Now, after initializing a couple of things, now let's render that into the current timer depth. So for this, I'm just going to use this .state.hours. We start with the hours, so the hours gonna comes up the on the left side. So hours plus 2 points, so concatenating strings and strings and integers. So in JavaScript, concatenating a string and an integer gonna do just pretty much fine. Like rather than on Python, you need to like static cast or like cast it into the other type in order to like concatenate it with each other. So if you've got the point actually. So here we need the minutes and plus this, okay, this states dot seconds. Okay, this is what we pretty much need for now. So just rendering this couple of things in here, and here we're doing just the timer stuff. And yeah, we are actually, let's try to see what we have in here for now. So let me just go ahead and render it into the React DOM render process. So here we put in layout. Okay, it's not Arabic. I'm sorry. Okay, so layout, just calling it. You remember that we have called layout. And Control S for saving. Let me just go back into the index.html and open it in the default browser. Remember, I'm not using the server, so I'm just using the React timer. And yeah, awesome. So everything is getting rendered for us. One thing I have forgot about adding in here, just a little thing in here, is a class, a bootstrap class, text align. So class name, and it's just gonna be like text center, for taking this text into the center. And yeah, I believe we are good to go. As you can see, React-based timer, and we get a reset, a capture time, a stop time, a start timer. So now the timer does nothing pretty much. What we need is to add the functionality. Whenever we click this button, the timer needs to start counting here. So start with a second. Whenever the second is like 60, we need to reset the seconds and take the minute into 1 minute. And keep carry on. Whenever the minutes like comes up to 60 minutes, we need to clear that into 0 and add 1 or plus 1 to the hours and so on and so forth. So it starts only with the only thing we need to count is the second. So the second needs to go from 0 to 60, then all of the other ones gonna get like get linked up with the seconds, and then just gonna like iterate through and adds up and so on and so forth until we stop the timer or like reload or capture the time or reset or something like this. So let's try to add the functionality of this. So first things first, let's add the handlers we want. So we need like a couple of handlers. This button, like on the on-click of this button, we need to run a function or a callback. So let me just add that into the scope of this class. So handle timer start. And yeah, it's gonna be like taking an event, but we don't really need it. So you can use events.prevent default if you are using something like a form or something, or this button is a submit button. So when you click it, you get a refresh thing. So using ape.prevent default gonna prevent the default behavior of this particular button. So yeah, this is like very helpful in most cases. So make sure to just use it for making your application looks a little bit better actually. Now here we need to actually start counting down. So for that, the timer, what it needs is to count down from, or each second. So like this is the main thing. So each second we need to add 1 to this particular thing. So how we can tell JavaScript to tell or to give it each second. So there's like a built-in function is called set interval. So this set interval function takes a callback. So it's just gonna call or execute this function or this callback. It takes every single time up. So as you can see, this the first one is a callback. The second one is the number of milliseconds. So if you give it a second, this callback is going to be executed every second. So this is what we know we actually want. So we'll go ahead and use an ESX arrow callback, and we give it like 1,000 milliseconds, which means like a second. And yeah, this is what we need to tell it to do. So for this is gonna be the callback actually, and here we need to add up each time +1 to the second. So this is actually going to be very, very basic and very simple. So each time we set the state and we check if the timer stopped, then we set the state and we set the interval and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and see if the timer actually is stopped or not. So we can say if .state.timer is stopped. So the timer is stopped, so we are good to start the timer. If you don't do that, it's just gonna give you a really weird error, because if you just try to click a couple of times on this button, so it tries to something like adds 2 seconds instead of a second and so on and so forth, so duplicate the number of seconds in need to add every single second. So if this is like something a little bit confusing, but if you need to do some checking before you actually can do that correctly. So here we need to set the state of the timer stop. So whenever this one, we need to start the timer. So this .set state, and here the set state takes an object. So like timer start, and we try to say true, and timer stopped, we need to say false. So by the way, here we're checking if the timer actually is stopped, which is true, like when the application is initialized and constructs. So the timer stopped is true. So this is just gonna enter for the first time and try to set it false, and back and forth. Whenever we click this button, stop timer, we're just gonna set it to true again, and so on and so forth. So yeah, here we check for that, and also here we need to check if actually the timer is a start. So if state.timer is a start, and we can do that. So pretty much what I need to check as well is this one needs to go up. So go out pretty much. So go out of the set interval function, and actually mainly because we need to check if it is stopped, then we can start the interval. If it's not stopped, we can't execute this interval because it's just going to give you a really weird error. So make sure just to do that. And here we need to start the timer. Now we need to do the countdown. So each time we need to +1 to the seconds only. And here we do this like this, .set state. And here we need to get the previous states. If you have watched my first third tutorial about the state changing of a React component, so you need to pass in the previous state, which is like giving a callback into the set states method for doing that pretty much. So here you're giving it like the previous state as the first. So let me just use that. So previous state. Okay, it's not what I meant to do. Okay, previous state, and here we need to update that. So we can call this .set state, and here the set state. Well, pretty much I'm inside a set state, so this is taking an object, and also make sure to wrap this object into parentheses, mainly because if you don't do that, JavaScript or React gonna take this as a function scope, while you need to tell JavaScript or React to take this as an object scope, not a function scope. The function scope, instead of those curly braces, are going to be parentheses when you actually put them. So this is what we want. And here we need to set the object state. So we can say seconds is going to be previous state.seconds +1. So each time we +1 to the seconds. So let's go ahead and just click that, and let me add the onClick. So onClick equals this dot handle timer start. So handle timer start dot bind, and also make sure to bind this context. So binding this context will just give it this under the runtime process, because onClick is going to be executed from other contexts, so it doesn't know about this existence on the other context. So you just need to bind about that. Just bind it, never takes care of that. And now Control S and start timer, and let's see, and here we go. So as you can see, in a very awesome way, we get that timer works. As you can see, just start counting up every single second, plusing only the second, and this is the minute, and this the hours. So are we getting that working pretty much fine now? Now what we need is, whenever this reaches 60 seconds, we need to clear that into 0, and it takes the minutes by 1 and plus 1 to the minutes pretty much. So yeah, let's go back and do that pretty quickly. So here we need to add like an if statement. So under here we say if this, so this dot state dot second. So we need to check if the seconds are greater than or equals 60. So if they are greater than or equals 60, so we need to add up 1 to the minutes. Also we say else if this dot state dot, and else if isn't really that good, so let me just add another if statement, so to make both of them execute at the same time if we get into that. So if this dot state dot minutes are greater than or equals to 60, we pretty much need to like add 1 to the hours and so on and so forth. So let me just go ahead and do that. Let's copy this very quickly and let's go ahead and use now the seconds. So now the seconds, so whenever they reach to 60, we need to clear that up. So we need to say second equals to 0, minutes equals previous state dot minutes plus 1. So yes, exactly, this is what we want. So previous state dot minutes plus 1 or equals minutes equals previous state's minutes plus 1, and this is how we takes it up. Now also for the hours, gonna take the same approach. So we need to clear now the minutes and the seconds. So both of them gonna equals 0 since the minutes gonna equal 60 or something, and also the seconds need to get cleared out. And also here the hours need to get by 1. So hours. So we're just gonna get previous state dot hours dot or plus 1, only like this. So previous state dot hours plus 1, and also for the minutes, previous minutes plus 1, and so on and so forth. So this is how we can get achieving that very quickly whenever this is going to be like included on that. So whenever it reaches 60, plus 1 to the minutes, whenever the minutes reaches 60 or greater than 60, plus the hours, and so on and so forth. And here we plus seconds every single like a second, since we are using the set interval on a second in here. So yeah, this is what we need to do. So let's Control S and go back, refresh everything, stop the timer again, and let's try to see that. So I don't know, let's wait for this actually. And yeah, you can see that we are almost there. And 60, 1, 1, okay, we get 1 plus to the minutes, and the seconds carry on counting, so on and so forth. The hours, we can't like demonstrate that for you actually, guys, but you can try by yourself by waiting in hours. But I don't really advise you to go ahead and wait for this particular thing for an hour, not to see that, because this is not a real big deal, but you can do that anyway. So here we need also to stop the timer. Sorry for that. Okay, let's go back and stop the timer. So this, we need to add another click events handler. So just gonna call it this dot handle timer stop dot bind, and also we need to bind the current context, of course. And let me just copy that and take it just down into the other one, take it there, and now we need to stop the timer. So with stopping the timer, we obviously gonna need let me just take in the events and say prevent default. So e dot prevent default, same as the other one. And here we need to say this dot set state, and we set state timer started equals false, it's not stopped, and also timer stopped gonna equal true. So we are stopping the timer here, we can start it again. And also we need to clear let's see here. So I believe that the timer stopped is working, and this should work pretty much right now. So let me just go back, Control S, and go here, refresh everything. We start the timer, we see it starting correctly in here. Just start counting the seconds. We click the stop timer, and let's try that. Okay, we are not getting actually nothing. We're not stopping anything. Let me see why that is happening pretty much. And yeah, one other thing I missed about doing in here is clearing the interval. So what I need is to like keep track of this particular interval in here. So as you can see, this interval returns, if you can hover it, it returns a Node.js timer. So we can store that into this class context. So timer equals set interval timer, and whenever we stop that, we need to clear the current interval. So here, and we can pass in this dot timer in order to get it cleared. So yes, and another thing here, we're setting the state of the timer stopped, but pretty much here we say if timer starts, state timer starts and stuff, and here handle timer stopped dot bind. Okay, this on click function, and when binding, now everything seems to be fine. I don't know, let's should go back and see if starting the timer now and trying to stop it, and yeah, actually we're getting and stopping it. So yeah, as you can see, it stopped. Now if you just click on stop timer again, it's just gonna resume on counting up and so on and so forth. Now yeah, clicking the timer again, it stops at whatever, I don't know, number it was in, but yeah, it is working pretty much fine now. As you can see here, it is fully working with the start timer and stop timer. It's showing up fine, and with the clear interval and everything working fine. So I guess this is pretty much it, actually, guys. I'm not abandoning that, because in the next video tutorial, what we're gonna go through is the reset button and the capture time button. I'm just gonna talk a little bit more about stuff that we need on the React optimization of React components and React applications. So thank you guys for watching again. In the next one, we're gonna resume this application and we're just gonna fully finish it. So yeah, as I've said, I will catch you in the next video tutorial.